We have one more pre-taped interview, and this one is with Vivek Wadhwa, who is a senior research associate at the Labor and Work-Life program at Harvard Law School. So let's go ahead and roll that tape.
What I was talking about today at the TED conference was the issue of gender. What really surprised me when I started looking at the data was that only 3% of the founders of tech companies — tech is a broad field, it's more than what we hear about in Silicon Valley — 3% of the founders of tech companies, 1% of the founders of high-tech companies, as in what you have in Silicon Valley, are women. And we looked at the difference between male entrepreneurs and female entrepreneurs, looked into the backgrounds, we looked into the success rates of women-founded companies, and by every measure, women are ahead of men. That when they start companies, they're more conservative in spending money, therefore they're more successful. Companies with women board members tend to be a lot better managed. I mean, every parameter we looked at showed that women-run companies are more likely to succeed than men-dominated companies. However, the funding primarily goes to males over here because the perception is that you got to be a young, brash male to be a successful entrepreneur. False.
Now, you've said that there aren't too many women in the top ranks of entrepreneurs. Are you saying that this is a problem that needs to be fixed, or is this just something natural and we should let the market sort it out?
Marty, the problem starts with childhood. The problem starts with mom and dad. That they believe that their girls should have Barbie dolls. The sons, they'll buy them guns. And they believe that their sons are macho and should enter math and science. The girls should go into marketing or interior design, God knows what else. For instance, my view is with children is always let them be what they want to be. Don't pigeonhole them, don't stereotype them, don't try to position them in one or the other. But parents themselves have to have this image that their girls can be as successful as their boys can. And their girls can also start multi-billion-dollar companies. There's no reason why you can't have women CEOs starting the next Facebook or the next Google.
Now, is the reason they're not doing it because when a woman goes to a venture capitalist, he doesn't take her seriously because she's a woman?
Well, I've spoken to several dozen women over the last year or so, ever since I've been writing about this topic, ever since I've been researching it. And privately, they tell you the horror stories. They go get in front of venture capitalists, and the VC will ask them, well, how does your husband feel about it? What's going to happen when you have children? I mean, just the type of questions that they're subjected, the way they're looked at.
Do you think there might be an issue in that being stubborn, being aggressive, being pushy is considered a desirable attribute in a man, but not so attractive in a woman?
Well, when a woman does that, she's called a bitch. She's called worse. I mean, when a guy does that, he's called macho. And that's what the problem is. I mean, we systematically discriminate against women.
That was Vivek Wadhwa of the Labor and Work-Life program at Harvard Law School. Now, he spoke about discrimination against women at the venture capital level. Do either of you feel that this really is like a serious problem, like there is intentional discrimination at that level?
I don't think it's intentional. It's more a question of what has the typical successful technology entrepreneur looked like, and you tend to associate that with somebody who's going to be successful again. I mean, there's research that has shown time and again that both men and women tend to make, for example, attribute to men more likelihood of success, etc. So it's not a conscious thing. I really think it's just something people don't even realize. But it's not a surprise that firms that have more women VC partners tend to make more investments in women.
Do you think that, Tatyana, maybe there's a difference between men and women as far as willingness to take risks?
I would say that there is no difference. I think it's more personality types versus males versus
temperamental
females.
Difference, like a woman might be more sensitive.
I think that's a perception.
Someone,
I think that's a perception, and that's one of the things that impacts the investment and everything else what women do. I would say that going back to Francine's comments on your first question, I think what makes it somewhat difficult for women to compete with men in the workforce or VCs or with the startups is the lifestyle, right? And the requirements that come with it. Mm-hmm. So if you're an entrepreneur, it's expected you work 24/7. At the same time, we know that based on our upbringing or society view on women. You're expected to do more house chores and house stuff than men do. And then you get questioned, well, where do you stand? Can you balance? Is lifestyle allows women to participate in certain functions?
Well, when he said that venture capitalists often ask women, what does your husband think? What about when you have children? So they basically questioning the woman's commitment, like is your family ultimately more important to you than your career? And if it is, then we don't want to put our money behind you.
And that's the same, not just for the startups, but in general, because of lifestyle expectations. So if you want to be high-ranking officials, it's expected that you are on call, live, doing business 24/7 times 365. So that becomes more an issue when they try to decide who to promote, or even women making decisions, do I want to take that job, thinking, okay, how it will impact the family. And the assumption is that men can push family and everything else back, and women will have a hard time doing that.
Well, is that a true assumption? I mean, women have always taken greater responsibility for child rearing. Is there any reason to think that's going to change?
I think ultimately it's going to have to change simply because we're finding more and more that employees want to have work-life balance, men and women. Whenever there are companies that offer the ability to have more flexibility, you find that men are more likely to take advantage of it than the women, because there are more men at the companies than the women. But that given the opportunity, men actually would like to spend some time with their families too. And I think we're seeing more ability for men to say, hey, I want work-life balance too. I don't want to spend 24/7, 365 at the office.
Right.
And what makes a good innovator? Usually there's only a handful of women of any sex that do a lot of innovating. We're almost running out of time. We only have 1 minute left, so this will have to be really short. But you don't see too many women among the ranks of people who blaze a new trail. It's one thing to follow a trail that somebody else has blazed, but is there anything that makes women less likely to blaze a brand new trail where nobody has ever gone?
I don't think so, and I think part of it is women are not quite as good at publicizing when they do blaze new trails. I think that's the issue, not that they're not doing it.
It may be knowing that VCs will most likely fund male-run companies. They will delegate what they came up with to someone else to actually present.
Well, I'd love to talk more, but we are just about out of time, so we are going to have to wrap. I'd like to thank my two very distinguished guests, Francine Gordon and Tatyana Kanzaveli.
Thank you.
Thank you both for being here. Thank you for watching. Visit our website at www.futuretalk.net. For Future Talk, I'm Marty Wasserman.